All
Sounds
right,
good.
so I'm gonna go ahead and hit live on all the platforms. Which there's just one button to do this all. All right, awesome. We are live on LinkedIn and we are live on LinkedIn. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome, Mark. Appreciate you joining the show. For those that are just joining us and hopping on either LinkedIn Live, YouTube, or live with us here on Riverside, appreciate you all joining. As a reminder, my name is Jason. I am the managing director of Thunder.vc. We are a tech-enabled investment bank that makes it easy for founders to identify which VCs and investors they should be focusing on when it comes to raising capital. And today we are running our guest speaker event series where we bring in an expert on a particular topic and they share their insights that we feel would be valuable to our founder community. And today we have Mark Pecota. Actually, Mark and I are alumni of the San Diego State, and he's been an absolute amazing executor when it comes to the world of crowdfunding and crowd raises in general. And I think Mark, you've raised over $100 million for a multitude of clients and companies across
Yep.
multiple sectors.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put you up there. You know a thing or two about how this world works, and we're super excited to have you live with us, sharing your insights. So, Mark, I would love for you to give a little bit more background on yourself as well as Launchboom, your firm that helps you do all this, and then we'll go ahead and dive in from there.
Cool. Well, I'll just start sharing my screen because I get into that right away. So first off, Jason, thanks for having me and very excited to be here. First time doing a live event like this though, streaming across LinkedIn, YouTube even. So what's up everyone joining? Looking forward to getting to your questions as well at the end. So just before I dive into this, just know that this presentation is going to get pretty in the weeds at some parts, but it's really meant to give you a detailed look at what it takes to launch your product using Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And the title of this presentation is How to Launchboom. Launchboom is the name of the brand, my brand. And what that means is it's a strategy to get funded the very first day on the crowdfunding platform. So we're going to get into that. All right. So who am I? A little bit of background. I am Mark. Yes, that is a photo of me doing something called wing walking. By the way, I will never do it again because it was the scariest thing I've ever done my entire life. Also, yes, I am wearing a tuxedo. You might recognize that. Why am I putting it in this presentation? Because I got the photo. Really, that's it. But besides that, when I'm not wing walking, I'm the CEO of Launchboom, and we're a global team of experts. We turn your product idea into a profitable e-commerce business. Like Jason said, we've driven over 100 million in revenue with product launches, working with over 1,000 product creators. And then both Kickstarter and Indiegogo, which are the two biggest crowdfunding platforms in the space, have recognized us as certified experts. And there's our beautiful team down there, all looking good in black. I also wrote the best-selling book on crowdfunding. I'm not just saying that. If you type in crowdfunding on Amazon, it will be the #1 book that shows up. And both the CEO of Kickstarter and Indiegogo support it. And fun fact, that cover that you're seeing right there is actually the new edition, which is coming out next week. All right. So what are we talking about today? So I already mentioned some things. We talk about crowdfunding, but really what we're talking about are pre-order product launches. That's really what we're doing here. And so pre-order product launch, this is a strategy that's used by the biggest brands in the world. This isn't just for, people in their garage launching things. This is the biggest brands. Maybe you've heard of Apple, right? Apple always does this. Their iPhones, every single product, they always have pre-orders. Or maybe you've heard of Amazon, right? They always do this as well. Nike, World Cup jersey sells out after record 3 million people try to pre-order it from Nike. And so you might be thinking, hey, I'm not Nike or Apple or Amazon. I'm not either. But you and myself, we can still use the same exact strategy of pre-selling to get our products off the ground. Now, the thing is that this strategy, this pre-order strategy, it's a little bit tricky to get it right. There's both on the strategic end, but also on the platform end. And the beauty of crowdfunding is that it makes having a pre-order product launch much more accessible to everyone, just like the biggest brands. And so let's dive into crowdfunding, why it works so well. Just a quick overview. This is why I've been doing this since 2015. So first off, with crowdfunding, you only need to have a prototype. That's it. You do not need to build up a whole bunch of inventory before you actually go and launch your product. Then once you have your inventory, once you have your prototype, you can use that prototype to then create all of your marketing assets that you need to actually launch your product. Then you can then build a pre-launch email list of people that are looking to buy your product again before you launch. Once that's big enough, you can use it to then launch your crowdfunding campaign and then start to get real orders from real customers. So you get real revenue. And then once you have that crowdfunding campaign's done, you get all that money, then you can finally go to manufacture your product. So using the pre-sale revenue that you just got from the crowdfunding campaign, then you can go build inventory and transition over to e-commerce. So I really like to view crowdfunding as in the whole strategy of doing a pre-order product launch as a way to excuse me, as a way to drastically decrease risk for an entrepreneur versus the traditional way, which is to go and you put a whole bunch of capital into inventory and then go do all the marketing and hope that you can then sell it. All right. And so our strategy from a very high level to do these pre-order product launches, and don't worry, I will get into the details. It's like this. So we want to first build a pre-launch email list of buyers. So people that have not only indicated some interest, but we have a really very high degree of certainty that they're actually going to buy. All right. Then we're going to use that email list to hit the funding goal on the first day. So the funding goal is what you have on these crowdfunding platforms. Like I'm looking to raise $10,000 for this to actually come to life. And we call this hitting your funding goal on the first day, having a Launchboom. So that's actually the name of the company is Launchboom, because that means to get funded the very first day. And when you do that, you can then use momentum to raise a lot more, essentially. So now that you know what a Launchboom is, getting funded the first day, let me show you what it looks like. So it looks something like this. So this is one of our clients, Top Shelf. You're going to have this big spike in funding on day one. So their goal was $8,000. On the first day, we did $172,000 in pre-sale revenue and ended up raising over $1 million. Lomi, $50,000 goal. First day did 2.1 million, total raise 7.2 million by the end. Or Zion, goal 25,000, 743,000 on the first day, total raise by the end, nearly 1.2 million. Now, I will admit all three of these campaigns I just showed you had significant ad budgets that were put into these campaigns. And so I always like to say, or ask the question, this just works for huge budgets, right? Definitely not. If people have smaller budgets, they're looking to not do as big of a raise, which is totally fine. The strategy still works. We launched Creed's Codex, had a $2,300 goal, $8,400 in the first day, did $52,000 by the end. Or Affinity, $5,000 goal, $12,000 the first day, $32,000 by the end. Or Lily and Lime, $5,000, $8,300 the first day, total raise $24,000. The other thing I want to point out.
Sorry to interrupt in your flow here, but I'm just out of curiosity, from the strategy perspective, I'm not sure if you're going to go into this, and if you are, you can just tell me to hold off. But all these goals being relatively low in comparison to the outcomes, is that a particular strategy? Is that, what's the aim in terms of setting such a low goal, for what most of those companies would probably be below what they could actually do anything with?
Right. I mean, for the most part, people are using the goal as, a way to blow past it. Yeah. And I am going to talk about in a moment some of the benefits of having a lower goal. So typically it is part of the marketing strategy to set a lower goal on the platforms and then to get funded quickly. Some of these, like I was showing you, had $50,000 goals or $25,000 goals as well, which are, the total of many raises, right? But yeah, for some of these ones that I'm showing, like a $2,300 goal, it's very low. At the same time, this type of creator with this type of product, even if he did raise, let's say not that much money, even $2,300, this is a very didn't cost a lot of money to actually bring this to life, so much as some of these heavier tech products or hardware products. So it really depends. I would say the biggest thing here, just talking about goals for a second, is that you never want to set a goal low if that meant that, if you only raise that much, you actually couldn't bring it to life. Okay. So you don't want to make that risk. It's definitely not worth it. So going forward, why is this important though? Using this as a strategy or getting funded quickly, is that there's three main benefits. One is that you get to access free traffic from the crowdfunding platforms. So on both Indiegogo and Kickstarter, which again are the two biggest ones, they have tens of millions of unique monthly visitors. And these are people that are looking for new innovative products that they're looking to pre-order. right? And so over here on the left, you're seeing the category ranking system on Indiegogo, and on the right, Kickstarter. They basically look the same, right? And the general thing here is that if your project is more popular in general, you typically are going to show up higher in the rankings on these platforms, which then is going to give you access to more traffic from the platforms. It works the same as, ranking high in Google or on Amazon, right? Just to get like a store essentially. And if you do this right, you see typically about 20 to 30% of the total funding comes from the platforms themselves. And this is very much helped out by getting funded quickly, right? And so that's why it's so important to do this. And this is, traffic you essentially don't have to pay for except for the 5% fee that you pay the platforms themselves. So benefit 2 is just boosting your conversion rate. So just quick question, which one of these campaigns do you think you would be more curious about? Project 1 that's 8% funded, or project 2 that's 334% funded? Probably project 2. If you have a lot of success, it builds trust. Trust increases the conversion rate. Higher conversion rate drives more revenue. Simple as that. Benefit 3, increasing the likelihood of getting press. So I showed you this earlier when I was describing or showing you what a Launchboom looks like. Top Shelf, did 1.2 or almost 1.3 Canadian. And look what Petapixel wrote about them. They talk about how much they raised. So how much you raise is something that is it's much more newsworthy and much more exciting. Same thing, Tandem Shower, another one of our clients in 774, Inc. wrote about them. They talk about, blasting through its $10,000 Kickstarter goal last month, right? So this is just another thing that makes it more likely that you will actually get picked up by press. All right, so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how to do it. All right, so there are 7 key milestones that you need to complete in order to have a Launchboom. So the first one is product positioning. The second one is product imagery. The third is your reservation funnel. Fourth are ads live. Fifth is your campaign page. Sixth is the campaign video. Seventh is launch. So I just want to say buckle up because there's a lot of information here. But by the end of this, you'll have a very good idea of what it takes to actually make this happen for your product. So let's start with product positioning. So first off, a lot of people don't know this, but nearly 60% of crowdfunding campaigns actually fail. They don't even hit their funding goals. The thing is that not all of these failed campaigns were actually bad products. A lot of these actually failed just because they had poor product positioning. So you might be asking, what makes good product positioning? Well, I like to break it down like this. Good product positioning does the following. First, it targets the right audience, meaning that it targets the people who experience the problem that your product solves. And 2, it communicates the value, meaning it clearly explains how your product solves their problem. All right. So with that in mind, because it's simple for me to say this, but not as easy to actually do, we like to use a framework to help with product positioning that's called the Consumer-Based Brand Equity, or CBBE framework. And so just a quick tip, if you guys want a freebie, there's a product positioning worksheet, which goes through a whole bunch of questions that goes through this framework. Go to launchboom.com/positioning or scan the QR code with your camera. All right, here we go. So the whole underlying principle of this framework is that the brand, it lives in the mind of your consumer. So for that reason, we want to approach your positioning as if we are them, your consumer, even if you haven't launched yet, right? You want to imagine it. So to illustrate how this works, let's do a quick experiment. I'm going to show you a brand. I'm sure you know them on the next slide. And after I show you the brand, just be aware of what comes to your mind. Even close your eyes for a moment. I'm sure you're just sitting alone somewhere, right? And just see what comes to your mind. Starbucks. Maybe you thought about, they sell coffee. Well, hey, that's pretty obvious, right? Well, if you did, that's actually speaking to salience on the CBBE framework, this product category, obviousness. Maybe you thought about the way their stores look or the fact that they're everywhere in the world. That's speaking to performance and imagery. Maybe you thought about the feelings of warmth or comfort, or you had a judgment about the coffee and how it tastes. That's speaking to level 3, which is judgments and feelings. Maybe you thought about their loyalty rewards program. If you did, you're probably a diehard Starbucks customer. That's actually speaking to level 4, which is resonance. All right. And so Starbucks, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, who knows, a lot of money, right, for you to have those thoughts. And you have probably spent zero, or let's just say relative to how much Starbucks has spent, it's pretty much zero, right? And that's totally fine. But we can still imagine how we want your consumer to think about your brand now before you actually launch your product. And that's going to help come up with good product positioning. And so I'm going to show you how this works from a high level and how it will help you position your product. And the reason why I want to take some time on product positioning is because it's really the most important piece of the whole puzzle. Because if you do not have good product positioning, you don't have a strong foundation for the rest of your campaign, the rest of your product launch to actually, be built on top of. So let's go through this. We're going to start at the bottom, and there is a lot of information here, but it's very important. Okay. So the first one is salience. This is broadly asking the question, what are you? So some questions that you'll answer are, how would you describe your product? What product category do you belong to? Stress, do not overthink this part. As an example, one of our clients, Giver Frontier Mittens, we did about $1 million on Kickstarter. When we were answering this question, we said, these are mittens, right? I mean, this is a pretty simple one. And so the tagline came out as the best damn mittens ever. And I always say we could have said they're the best damn quad layer, super warm hand insulators, which are actually would be true, but we wouldn't say that because no one knows what that means. This might seem like a very obvious point I'm making, but you may be surprised in working with thousands of people on doing this, how much people get this part wrong, meaning that they overcomplicate actually saying what their product is. They can't even clearly state what product category they're a part of. And so that's very important to use language that consumers actually understand when describing your product. All right. So next, let's move on to performance and imagery, which is level 2. So it's broadly asking the question, how do you do it? When we zoom in on performance for a moment, you'll answer questions like, what problem do you solve? What makes you different? What are your core features? And speaking to the last point on what are your core features, as an example, for our client Loft Tech, did about 750,000. It's this jacket right here. We listed out all the different features, just go crazy, list them all out. And that led us to come up with this feature cloud graphic, which, by the way, if you have a lot of features, this is a really effective graphic. We use this in ads. It worked extremely well. It was one of the top images that we put up on the campaign page. Really gets across very quickly that there are a lot of features. It's almost like over-engineered jacket. All right, let's move on to imagery. So where is your product used? How is your product used? What brands would you associate with your product? So for this one, I'm going to show the Empire William Painter. Jason knows this brand for sure. And so this is a really cool one because when we were answering these questions, we said, hey, we imagine these sunglasses out in the outdoors in adventurous locations. We also want to associate this brand with one that was high tech, adventurous, and innovative. So one of the brands that we wanted to associate with William Painter and these sunglasses was NASA. So look at how this actually showed up in the advertising. So first off, this is in an outdoor adventurous location, just like how we answered during this, the initial questions and the exercise. And then our copy was, these NASA inspired sunglasses are made of aerospace grade titanium. And this is a form of what we call brand jacking, where you're actually essentially stealing the brand equity of a well-known brand and then taking that. Now you have that association with a whole brand new audience. And so this ad performed extremely well. I'm actually going to show you another example of brand jacking later in the presentation. That's very cool that you guys can take that template as well. All right, so now let's go to judgments and feelings. So we're moving our way up. How good are you is basically the question that we're asking. And so what concerns or doubts may people have about the product? What positive judgments will people have? What credibility do you have in the space? For this one, I'll show you neck hammock. It's a simple device right here that helps you with neck pain, and so we knew that people were going to have concerns and doubts about how, effective is this simple device? Is there actual science behind it? And so first off, we leaned into the fact that it was designed by a doctor, talked about his credibility, talked about the testimonials that he had of working with celebrities. We also leaned into the fact that the science behind cervical traction, which is how this simple device works. And so getting in front of this allowed us to, again, get in front of the concerns and doubts that people had, which ended up leading to a very successful campaign, doing $900,000. Next is feelings. So how do you want people to feel? What is the voice of your message? What is the tone of your message? I really like this example. It's very nuanced, but I think it's very cool. So air pics, we did 1.6 million. If you look at this is essentially, it's a drone. So it's a drone, you throw it up, flies, it takes selfies of you, right? When we were answering these questions about how we want people to feel or not feel, we said, we don't actually want to go after an audience that's super techie, so to speak. And so we want to avoid language that comes across that way. We knew that the word drone, or we felt the word drone, was actually too techie. People might associate it with DJI cameras or military drones. And so we decided to change that word. So instead of your pocket-sized camera drone, which again is technically what it is, we changed it to your pocket-sized aerial photographer. This ad copy worked way better. And so thinking about this stuff beforehand will allow you to have better positioning, which then leads to better results. Okay, now let's talk about resonance. So this is the last stage. This is about answering the question, what about you and me? All right. And so you'll ask questions like, why would you be missed? How is your mission in alignment with your customer's mission? Why will your customers only choose you? For this example, I'll show you Eti. They make plastic-free alternatives to everyday household goods. Did about 400,000 on Indiegogo. So we just leaned very heavily into their mission of plastic-free living for everyone. I'll admit this type of positioning for this type of brand was very easy because they have such an altruistic mission. And really the point I want to make here is that most brands will not have some big altruistic mission, and that's totally fine. Even in the example of Starbucks, for example, at the end of the day, like, they sell coffee. Come on. I mean, you can go to their about page. I'm sure they have some big lofty sounding mission, but no one is really going in there for that at the end of the day. The reason why I make this point is because another big mistake that I see people make is that they lean too heavily into their mission when it really might not be that authentic to them. They're almost like coming up with something because they think they need to have some big mission that people are going to actually, that's not going to be the biggest reason why people end up buying, especially when you're a new brand. So definitely don't go too deep into this if it's not that authentic to you. All right, so just one more chance. If you want to download that product positioning worksheet, you can scan that QR code or go there. All right, guys, let's keep moving. You're probably all like, how long is this presentation? Mark just spent like 15 minutes on that or something. Don't worry. We're going to get moving from here. So product positioning is done. We're going to move on to product imagery. So now that you have this done, it's time to get images of your product. Now, there are really 3 types of product photography that you want to grab. First are studio, second are location-based, and third are action. So starting with studio, you can think of these like the glamour shots. So highlighting every angle and feature of your product. So there are 2 types of studio photography. You have whole product. So in this example of Author Clock, we did 2.2 million. And you want to get straight on 45-degree angle, profile, and back. So I'm showing you straight on and 45-degree angle here. So very simple, right? And then feature-based studio photography looks something like this. So this example of Scorpio oven did about 101,000. So taking close-up shots of every key feature, usually it's about 2 to 5. If you have more features, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that they're the hero of the shot. All right, now we'll move on to location-based. So showcasing your product in the environment it's meant to be used. So in this one, I'm showing you Griffin. We did 142,000. This is a Wi-Fi router. And so we imagined it being used, on countertops in a very clean, modern apartment, on a side table, et cetera. So when we were actually answering the questions during the positioning, we listed all these things out. When we went to get the location shots, it was super easy for us to do this. Last, action-based. So this is better, better for things that are showcased through action or motion. And so you can actually do this both in the form of a video or a photo. So in the example over here, Pepper Cannon did over 3 million. This thing is like a really badass pepper grinder. So pepper mill, you can get a ton of pepper out of it, as you see right here. That's why we decided to showcase it through video, but we also can do action through photos. In this case of Buna, we want to show the action of a couple being in the shower using the product, which allows them to do that. So that's also an example of an action-based shot. All right, look at that. Milestone 2 is done. So now we're moving. Now we're on to milestone 3, which is reservation funnel, probably my favorite part. All right, so what is it? What is a reservation funnel, you might be asking? Good question. Well, it is a website funnel where email subscribers can put down a $1 deposit to reserve the best deal when the product launches. Now, to explain why it works, let me show you what our funnels used to look like, because we didn't used to have reservation funnels when we first started in 2015. It started like this. Our funnels would start with a Facebook ad. Someone would click on the Facebook ad. They would be taken to a landing page, look something like this. The goal was to get someone to put their email in and be notified when the launch is happening. Then they would go to a thank you page. Super simple, all right? Then we started to build an email list that way. And then once it got big enough, we would then launch on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, all right? This was the funnel. Excuse me. There's a big problem with this funnel. And the problem is that it's virtually impossible to predict how likely an email subscriber is to buy when you launch using the only the data that you collect through that type of funnel. And so I thought, hey, there has to be a better way, right? And so we came up with a new funnel. So it all changed when we added one simple step to this funnel. After someone gave us their email, we presented an offer to reserve the best deal, like with the best launch deal for only a $1 deposit. So now the funnel looks like this. Starts the same. You have a Facebook ad, someone clicks on it, you get taken to a landing page, they put in their email address. This is where it gets interesting. Now they're taken to what we call a reservation bridge. So this is where we say, hey, you're in, but if you want to get, in this case for Botany, which is a board game, a bonus mini expansion when you reserve Botany today, just simply place a $1 deposit and you'll be added as a VIP, essentially. So people click, okay, reserve Botany now, and they're taken to a checkout. And this is a simple checkout. They put in their information and check out for $1. Then they're taken to a thank you page, right? So now the funnel looks something like this, where you actually have two groups of people on your email list. You have what we call non-VIPs, which are people that only gave you their email address. Then you have VIPs, which are people that gave you their email address and put down a $1 deposit. And we'll talk more about the difference between these two groups later. But ultimately, you're going to build up this email list, these two different segments, and then you'll use those that email list to then launch and have a Launchboom. All right. So just a fun fact, the example I've been giving was from Botany, one of our clients that recently ended, did over 1 million. Really cool board game if you want to check it out. They also, using this strategy, did 99,000 in the very first day. So how much more valuable is that data point, like getting that $1? Well, we found that reservations are 30 times more likely to buy on average than someone that just gives their email address. So it's way more valuable. By knowing this data point, then we can optimize our ads for a better data point that actually shows purchase intent than just someone giving their email address. Okay, so now the reservation funnel is done. You've built it up. Now we need to get ads live, start to drive traffic to this funnel. So you must generate a pre-launch email list to have a Launchboom. I want to really stress that point. It's the most important thing. And so the best way to generate this email list is through Facebook ads. Yes, this is still true. People always ask me, what about TikTok, right? TikTok is great, right? There's like uses for it. But in terms of what we've seen being the most dependable and scalable form of driving highly qualified traffic to build up an email list, Facebook or Meta, right, still reigns supreme. All right, so how do you make a good Facebook ad? This is not going to be a masterclass in Facebook ads. Just want to give you an overview. So first off, we need to find the best audiences to target. All right. So an audience on Facebook is mainly a collection of interests at the end of the day. What do people like, right? And so to come up with interest-based audiences, here's just a cool, brainstorming framework that you can use, that we use at times, called the 4Fs framework. All right. And so to show you how this works, I'll give you real examples from one of our clients, The Scoop, did about $250,000 on Indiegogo. So the first F is, who do they follow? So when we asked this question for The Scoop, meaning like who do their audience follow, we came up with this conservative influencers audience. This is actually what you would see in Facebook, by the way, if you haven't run ads. And so, our interests that we were targeting were Laura Ingraham, Fox News Channel, et cetera, all these conservative influencers. This audience performed really well. Where do they frequent? Like, where do they spend their time? We thought, hey, they probably spend their time, this audience, a lot watching Hallmark Movie Channel, Lifetime TV, HGTV, et cetera. And we created this audience. This one performed really well. Then we said, what do they do for fun? So TV streaming services. This is actually very similar to the last one, but this one also performed very well. What do they fund? Like, where do they spend their money? So this one, we came up with the AARP audience. You can probably envision who this audience is, by the way, by everything that I've shown for this product. But we did retirement planning, AARP, USAA. And again, this is just a brainstorming framework, the 4Fs, but just wanted to give this to you. It's something that you can maybe use to help you come up with interest-based audiences. So now that we have the audiences, we need to write ad copy and choose ad imagery. So typically when someone looks at an ad, their eyes go here first. So on the creative, then they go down here to this headline, then up here to the copy. So for that reason, the creative is definitely the most important part. And that's the reason why we test it first when we're doing ads as well. And so I don't know if you can actually see this. Jason, are you seeing my screen on the ad?
Yep. No, we can see the screen.
All right, cool. So let me just show you this really quickly. I don't think the audio is going to come through, but we'll play it.
What do you think, man?
It is the absolute future. That's what I think.
Absolute future? What happened? What happened?
Everyone wouldn't stop looking at me.
So I'll just speak to this as it keeps playing. So this ad right here is for a product called Zion CyberX. It's an e-bike. All right. And this is shot on an iPhone. This is a real testimonial that had some guy go on the bike, come back. They filmed his reaction when he got back. There are no cuts, no edits, super low production value. And you can even just see by the engagement and the comments and the shares that this was a popular ad, right? Because there was a lot of people being shown it. And I'll show you the actual stats for this ad in a moment. But this performed really, really well, this type of ad type. And this is actually a template that I would recommend you use if you're looking for an ad type to use. I also wanted to show you this other example of what I would call brand jacking. So look at this copy. If Lamborghini and Tesla had an e-bike baby, it would be CyberX. This is a great template. So you can insert any brand you want to associate with, and then whatever your product category is, and then the name of your product, and then list out all the main features. And this ad template may work for you as well. It's worked for us many times. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. All right, so this ad performed so well that we spent $28,000 just on this one ad. All right, and then this campaign went on to raise nearly $1.2 million. And we spent around $90,000, I believe, by the end of the campaign. So we had a really nice return on ad spend as well. So a quick tip, if this wasn't clear when I was explaining the ad before, but authentic user-generated ad content tends to perform better in social advertising like Facebook, Instagram, etc. And so that means that you don't have to spend a ton of money producing ads to actually get really, really great ads. A lot of times, let's call them ugly ads, actually perform extremely well. So I would highly recommend using this type of ad format when you're actually running your ads and building your email list. All right, so now we've gotten ads live. Now it's time to move on to your campaign page. We're getting close to launch, guys. All right, so campaign page, I'm gonna give you 3 tips for creating your campaign page. First off, copy is the most important. So the greatest visuals will not save bad copy. You wanna focus on the copy first. Second is in relation to copy, I recommend being clear and not clever. I always like to say this isn't art. At the end of the day, you're trying to sell something. So prioritize clarity over cleverness. And third, I urge you to model what works. So research campaigns similar to yours that are successful and model it for your own campaign. One of the coolest parts about crowdfunding is that everything is public. You can go onto these sites. I think Kickstarter has the best search tool and actually look at campaigns that are similar to yours, and you can get inspiration from them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So just a quick example, and I can share this. Just kind of go through it. This is one of our campaigns that ended recently. Century Jacket, great product, by the way. Oops. And I'll just kind of scroll through this, but I want you to notice that one of the most important things on a campaign page is to know that people are going to be skimming the campaign page. They're not going to be reading every single thing unless there's some like diehard person, right? So we want to think about making it really skimmable. And that's why we really like to focus on the headlines and subheadlines. So if you just even go through this, introducing the Century Jacket, timeless silhouette for timeless wear, flattering fit, functional form, 100, just keep going through this. You get a pretty good idea of what the main product, benefits are as you just scroll down through this. So I recommend checking this page out. It's pretty long, but it performed extremely well. It gives you an idea of, using the tips that I just showed you. All right, let's go back in. All right, so now the campaign page is done. We'll move on to the campaign video. Same thing, I'll give you 3 tips. Just like before, as copy is most important, the script is the most important for your campaign video. So you want to get that right first. You do not want to spend too much on the video. So too much is kind of subjective, but I like to say that, you can easily get a video done for under $10,000 that's highly effective. I've seen people spend, $25,000, even more on videos, on their campaign videos. And I really don't think it makes that big of a difference. There's definitely some diminishing returns after you get past, I would say, $10,000 for most products. And your video is the least important asset if you're comparing it to, let's say, the campaign page itself. Most people aren't even going to watch the video. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's definitely not as important as the campaign page. So this is another reason not to invest too much money into it. And so just as an example, I'll show you this video. Again, I don't think the audio is going to come through, but let me show you this.
Hey man, you busy?
Yes, you are busy, and it's time to let your house know it. Meet BusyBox, the wireless status box that helps you work uninterrupted.
So just because I don't think the audio is coming through, I'll just speak to this. So this is one of our campaigns.
It is coming through, just so you know. We can hear
it was.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna keep going anyways. But thanks, Jason. It's this was one of our campaigns that we launched, BusyBox. This actual video is very low cost to actually make. It was shot in one location. It's mainly because it has a really good script, right? And so you have that voiceover actor going through it. You have this, the text going over the top as well. And we do break it up with some stock videos. Like this is all stock video as well. So this is a way to make it more dynamic without actually adding, a substantial amount more cost. And so this is just an example again of a well-executed script doesn't have to be super expensive to make. All right. And so this campaign went on to do 332,000. And then also he got on Shark Tank. So all right. So now the campaign video is done. So let's move on to the final step. We're almost there, launching. So before you launch, you need to build hype through email marketing. All right. And so remember these two groups. You had the non-VIPs and VIPs of your email list. Well, we want to send them emails. Okay. So you want to send the email 7 days before you launch and 1 day before you launch. That's it. I highly stress not sending too many emails to your list. We see a big drop off in engagement. Typically, if you send too many emails, these people signed up to the list to be notified when you launch. And so here's what to say in general. So for the VIPs, you want to tell them when you're going to launch, remind them the discount they're going to get, send them a preview link to your campaign page, make them feel exclusive. Non-VIPs, tell them when you're going to launch, remind them why they should upgrade to VIP. So you still want to be pushing the VIP upgrade because that will allow you to get just more people into the VIP list. So now it is time to launch. So it's time to have a launch boom. You guys ready? All right, here we go. So we launch. We're going to send an email in the morning and one email in the evening on launch day. Yes, 2 emails in 1 day. It's very worth it. And so here's what to say. For VIPs, we actually like to send the email to the VIPs 1 hour before the non-VIPs. So, and then if you launch on Indiegogo, you can give them secret perks, which are actually unique links that will just show the discount just to them. Remind them that this is an exclusive discount. And I didn't talk about this last point, but recommend building or having a Facebook group or a private Facebook group or a private Discord server for your VIPs. And so just make sure that you post there. Then non-VIPs, notify them after the VIPs. And think about, what I was talking about, getting funded early as well. Usually the VIPs will be enough to get you funded, which then will build, trust, which then will increase the conversion rate. And so non-VIPs will then be more likely to buy if they get notified later. All right, so if you do this right, then your day one graph should look something like this, have a huge spike at the beginning. And you'll have results that look like these Launchboom clients. So Amy and Dustin, who I showed you earlier, did over $1 million, or Dominic, 780,000, or Tomokasu, 207,000, or this family did 124,000, or Marcos, 158,000, Simon, 159, Tayson, 1 million, and Joanna, 1.7 million, literally hundreds of other clients that all use the same exact system that I just showed you. So they went through the 7 milestones. They positioned their product correctly. They got their product imagery. They built their reservation funnel. They got ads live to build up an email list. They built their campaign page. They created their campaign video. And once their email list was big enough, they launched, and they all had a launch boom. And now you can too, using this system. So I hope you do. I hope you learned a lot. I know this was a lot of information. We're going to get into Q&A coming up here. I just want to say, if you are interested in talking with my team, you can do that by going to launchboom.com/book call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about your product, see if we might be a good fit. So with that, we can move on to questions.
Mark, there are so many valuable points in this that I find to be applicable to a lot of startups, regardless of whether they're doing like a product launch, like a physical CPG brand, which is mostly the examples that you brought up, which it's fun to look at all those products that I've seen all those products. So it's great to know that you were behind all those. I wasn't familiar with you running those all, but pretty prominent, brands that have had a lot of success, clearly a lot of experience that you had, and you basically just gave the farm away in terms of how to do it. Obviously it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's
take it.
But the insights were incredibly valuable. And that framework, that kind of pyramid framework, if you wouldn't actually mind going back and just putting that back up on the screen, I think for people to kind of reference, obviously there's a lot of meat behind it, and we'll get this presentation shared with with the recording, but the fact that you guys have developed that framework, yeah, I find that incredibly valuable for every single startup, whether they're CPG or even like B2B software. It's still relevant to kind of go through that exercise.
Yeah.
Um,
We definitely didn't develop the framework. We like adapted it. So just want to give credit where credit's due. But yeah, we do find it to be very, very useful way to think about product positioning.
yeah, that it's incredibly accurate, and I would say not top of mind for a lot of founders when it should be when it comes to like really thinking about their product going to market and how it's going to resonate with their audience. So I just kind of want to allow people to let this sink in and think about their product from a standpoint of how are they going to launch this, and how are they going to win over customers and make sure they're best positioned for success, whether they already have a product to market and they haven't done this yet and they kind of want to figure out maybe what's the missing piece. And if you can't answer these questions strongly with like a very high level of conviction, there might be something that you need to work on when it comes to the product or the offering or the messaging. So
Right.
uh you know super super valuable input. We do have one guest with us, Ruby. She's joined a couple of our events in the past. She has a kind of a bedding products like sheets and quilts and things of that sort. And she asked the question like basically how do you position her bedding products, which to put you on the spot might be a little difficult, but for a founder that's had a product in market that maybe hasn't done kind of like a pre-sale launch or like a Kickstarter, but has a product in market, what would you advise them to do? Would you have them consider maybe like a Kickstarter if they need to kind of boost sales? Like what would be the strategy for someone that already has product, already has sales that maybe has never done a Kickstarter?
Yeah. So in order to launch a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you do have to have like a new product that you will be launching. So it can't be existing. I guess the only caveat to that is if let's say you already launched on your e-commerce website and you decide that, hey, maybe I've been doing this for a few months and it's not working as well. I actually want to go and have like a bigger launch to this. You could take it down from your e-commerce website and then launch on one of these crowdfunding platforms. So that is an option. The main thing is you just can't be selling it somewhere else at the same time that these launches are going off. But the most typical thing is that if you're an existing brand, you would come up with another unique product that you would launch specifically for crowdfunding.
Yeah, and something the example you brought up, Matt's company, William Painter, they basically they started with one pair of sunglasses, and then every time they launched a new design or a new style of sunglasses, they did a Kickstarter, and they would, in most cases, earn six figures
Right.
on that launch, both with existing and new customers, is a great kind of launch strategy to then nurture those clients. And some of these tips I feel are valuable to even like potentially like B2C or B2B SaaS customers or service companies, just from the standpoint of that pre-sale pipeline. I see a lot of pre-launch like, hey, this is coming soon, or join our wait list. But yeah, like drop my email into like a one-page landing page that has like some kind of cryptic message that sounds cool. It's like, all right, cool, but like I'm gonna forget about you in a day.
Right.
So that kind of like either pre-sale, like, hey, if you deposit $1 now, you get X. And now I'm like, oh, all right, I have a little bit more commitment. I've made that little extra
Right.
step, and I'm more likely to be interested in when the actual release comes out. And that it's such a low commitment, and it's only $1, but it's that mental commitment of I gave these people money already. I want to kind of see
Yeah.
what happens.
I think, if you don't even just apply this, like you were saying, it doesn't have to just be applied to, let's say, consumer products, but just the whole concept of if you're zooming in on building up an email list of people that are interested in your product launch or, your software launch or whatever it might be, right? The idea of having these like micro commitments, or like levels of commitment in a funnel, I think is really powerful. I do think that having some type of monetary commitment be a part of any type of pre-launch email list building strategy is really important, because without having that metric, for us, we haven't found a better metric that really indicates purchase intent, as well as even So it sounds so insignificant, but just, do the mental exercise of thinking someone sees your ad, they click on the page, they go to it, they put in their email address, they see this offer, and they pull out their credit card or whatever. They might have it saved in their browser, and then they put in $1. It's like there is some hoops that people have to jump through there. So I think those concepts can be applied to essentially anything, not just consumer products.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also why I wanted you on the show, just because, albeit the majority of the execution is extremely applicable to B2C, consumer CPG products. But this is, very applicable from just how to go through these steps and more of the framework of thinking of like how to position yourself, and a lot of the assets that you have to create are hyper relevant to all businesses. And I think that, valuable for people to really take into consideration of how they could potentially take a B2C marketing strategy to make it a B2B, and kind of help them find ways to differentiate.
Right.
We have a question. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Does your system work for a marketplace rather than an individual product?
We've never seen it work for that. I'm trying to think creatively how it could work. I guess to my point that I guess we were both making earlier, there are some, I think, principles of the strategy that can work for even a marketplace. But yeah, I haven't seen it work.
Yeah, I would, the marketplace problem, kind of the cold start problem that Andrew Chen wrote about in his book of just, identifying network effect, like how do you build that network effect, and kind of the buy side and the sell side in the marketplace. It's a much more nuanced and more difficult strategy to, in comparison to what we talked about today. So I don't know if it's necessarily applicable.
Right.
That all said, for interesting. So at this point, are there any other kind of like final tips that you would like to leave with founders at this point?
I think the biggest one is, we deal with a lot of people that I almost feel like what we do is more B2C, really, because we're dealing with a lot of people that have these product ideas. They may have jobs themselves. They're like first-time creators, first-time entrepreneurs. And I think the hardest part is just going and doing it, like starting it. So many people have ideas. It's just they've been like sitting on the sidelines for a long time watching everyone else launch. And so my advice would be just go for it. Why not? I think a lot about, I think Jeff Bezos has some like really great frameworks, like regret minimization framework, where it's like, imagine yourself being 80. Are you going to regret never actually going after and trying to launch this idea? If the answer is yes, then see what it might take to go forward with it and see what the next immediate step might be. You definitely don't need to have it all figured out. I'll tell you for sure, a lot of our clients don't have it all figured out, as they're going through it. And I'm not going to say it's easy, right? But there are a lot of resources. So I also have, like I was saying, my book and free blog. So it's not, just pitching our services. Like there are a lot of things that you can learn on your own, and go do it yourself as well. So I really highly, encourage people to just go after it if you have an idea.
Yeah, no, I could definitely resonate with that sentiment. Actually, I was gonna wrap it there. There's some other points I wanted to bring up from your presentation that, just dealt with this the other day. Very technical founder, very capable, built a phenomenal product, but when trying to explain takes an hour, to try to, and like lots of jargon, lots of acronyms, lots of industry speak. And, when you kind of brought that example up with the mitten. So it's either this, the warmest, insulated, whatever type thing, which tacks on all the hard things that they figured out and solved this problem for, that they're very proud of and they want to make sure everyone knows about.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a mitten.
Right.
It's a good mitten.
Yeah,
it's a great mitten.
It's a very good mitten. It's the best damn mitten. Yeah.
But it's a mitten. And I find myself spending a lot of time with founders on repositioning themselves outside of the complexity of what they built and simplifying it, because it doesn't necessarily degrade the hard work they've done. It actually invites more people to consider it or buy it or use it, when the average person can easily not just understand it, but explain it to their friends when it comes to like referring to other people, and driving referrals. We'll try one more. I don't know if it's applicable, but
I
some
think
of them.
can I say something to that point
yeah, sure.
really quick? I like giving the example of actually one of my co-founders, Victor, like did a post on this on LinkedIn the other day, and I thought it was really good. It was like the iPhone when it first came out. I mean, there really wasn't anything like it, but it is made up of different products that people did know. So if you watch the keynote from Steve Jobs, he says it is a phone, it is a iPod, because people knew what that was at that point. And then I think he said Internet Navigator or something like that, which sounds kind of weird. But anyways, he's kept cycling. He's like iPhone, iPod, Internet Navigator, like iPhone, bump, bump, bump. And then iPhone reveal, right? And I think why I'm giving that example is when people are bringing new, completely unique products to the market, they're like, I don't know how, there is no product category for this, like a new thing, right? Well, it's like, it's not completely new. It is made up of different product categories that people know. It has to be, right? Nothing is completely new. And so that's like a trick that you can use in terms of describing your product. Think about like what it's made up of, and language that you can use to describe it. It could work.
No, I appreciate those insights, and I think that's a good example, to share. And the feedback that you've been able to provide our audience is, very much appreciated. I'm excited to get this, recorded and put out to the rest of our audience to kind of follow some of these tips and share this presentation, because I think there's a lot of value for people to use here. And what was the best way to get a hold of you, Mark?
Yeah. So if you just go to launchboom.com, that's one. I'm here on LinkedIn if you guys are streaming on LinkedIn. So just look me up on LinkedIn, or you can also just shoot me an email, honestly. So just mark@launchboom.com, and I will get back to you, try to help you out best I can.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for everyone joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and stop our live stream, and
Cool.
but
Thanks,
I'll
Jason.
follow up
Thanks,
with you
everyone.
after this. But
right.
Thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate it, and I'll catch you on this side.